All right, I'm here with Magnus Johnson, founder of Mission 22 today. Magnus, how you doing, man?
I'm doing pretty good. Looking forward to having a conversation with you.
Awesome, me too. So it is November. November is a heavy month for a lot of veterans for multiple different reasons. You and I both served in the global war on terror, Iraq and Afghanistan for yourself. I served 2 tours in Iraq. Today, I just want to have a conversation with you, man, about Mission 22, Rebel Pastures, what we're doing for the month of November this month. Rebel Pastures is donating 5% of all of our sales to Mission 22, which is an incredible organization. And I've had the honor of knowing you for over 10 years now. So, Manis, why don't you tell us a little bit about Mission 22 and the work that you're doing there?
Yeah, man. Well, first of all, thanks for inviting me to have a conversation, and thank you for the donation. And more importantly, even than the money, is it's coming from your passion with regenerative farming. And I really like to align with brands and people that believe what I believe and have the same principles and values because I think it makes a stronger message. So I'm really looking forward to partnering with you in that and being aligned with those values. So Mission 22 is a veterans charity. We started in 2013, I think officially, and our we started out with raising awareness about veteran suicide. But over all the years, we now do pretty comprehensive post-traumatic stress recovery and resiliency program. It's called R&R, and so that's our biggest flagship program. And we see significant reduction in PTSD symptoms, people that participate in it. And then our second biggest thing, our bigger in a different way, is our ambassador program. That's where civilians and veterans come together to raise awareness, raise funds, advocate, and create basically a brotherhood and a community of people that are like-minded, that believe in what we're doing, support it, and connect us to the community.
I love it, Magnus. It's less than 1% of the population today serves in the military, right? And of that 1%, far fewer actually serve in combat positions, combat roles, combat tours. To bear that weight alone without our society, that's a big ask. That's a big ask to ask 1% of a population to shoulder the burden of combat for all, right? And this is a way to really connect civilians with military to at least get a little bit of comprehension into the weight, some of the burdens, right? I mean, the reason he's found Mission 22 is because unfortunately 22 veterans a day were committing suicide. And that number is still very high today. It may not be exactly 22 at the moment. It's fluctuated over time, but it's a real thing.
Yeah, the official number when we started Mission 22 was 22, and then the official number has gone up and down. But there's a lot of research saying that that official number is really low
Hmm.
because not every veteran's involved in the system, right? So if they're, and then also there's suicide by cop, there's single car accidents, there's a lot of other areas where, ODing. So there's a lot of kind of gray around the what's actually classified as a suicide. So yeah, it's a pretty big thing, and it's you bring up the burden of 1% served, and out of that, it's like 1 or 2% saw combat. That's a very small demographic. So it's like imagine 20 people from your community, and you guys went on a hike, and one person's carrying 80 pounds, and everyone else is carrying 10. That one person is going to struggle a little more than the rest, even though they're strong. And so that's kind of a visual way of thinking about it.
So why don't you share just a little bit of your story, your background? You joined the army. I know that you had a tour in Ramadi, Iraq, at a period of time where Ramadi was a really hot spot, not a great spot at all. And that kind of really formulated the future for you in the army and some of the decisions you made. Can you just share a little bit about your background story there?
Yeah, man, I was from Montana. I was doing concrete. 9/11 happened while we were, finishing a sidewalk, and we all jumped in the truck and listened to the news. We concrete is setting. You need to kind of finish it as it's setting, and we didn't because we were all piled in the truck listening on the radio. And so I joined up, and it was a delayed entry program. And then a few months later, I was in basic, and then not much after that, I got to my unit, and then we headed off to Ramadi in 2006. And so, if people aren't familiar with that, this is one of the bloodiest years, one of the bloodiest battles. You got Fallujah, Mosul, and Ramadi. And I was there in 2006, and it's called the Battle. And out of my 3 tours, man, because I was in the regular army when I went to Ramadi, I was a combat engineer. But that was intense. It was dark. It felt evil. It was violent, and nothing. Even as my tours as a Green Beret later, don't compare to that first kind of intense introduction into combat. And that was for me in 2006. Even though, as a regular Army guy, it's not like we were the badasses doing all the cool stuff, but the darkness, the intensity, the IEDs, the death count. I mean, the intensity was pretty big. And so after my tour there, I lost buddies. There was a lot of death, all this stuff. But after my tour there, I got like deeply bitter, resentful, frustrated, and that's when I signed up to become a Green Beret after that tour because of my level of frustration from the first tour.
Yeah. I was in Iraq 2004. Well, I was there in 2003 when we invaded, but I went back for 2004 leading up to Fallujah. And it was intense, man. It was intense. No doubt about it. It was a tense time to
Yeah, I
be.
mean, I listened to you kind of share your story the other day, and I can resonate it with a lot. I didn't get hit like you did, but people are getting hit all around me. EMPs is what they were called. I mean, they
Yep.
would just blow through armored vehicles like a hot knife through butter. And it didn't matter what you were in if you got hit with the right EMP at the right place.
Yeah.
And
Even if
so, yeah. So every patrol, every bump, every little thing for a year, you know, on top of fighting, on top of things happening, just the daily living of it was maximum intensity.
I think it's one of the things too, man, that I really it's not that I struggled with, but just the reality of that time, that combat, that intensity was just you never knew where it was going to come from. You didn't know if it was going to be indirect, if it's going to be a mortar, if it's going to be a rocket. You didn't know if it's going to be an IED buried underneath the road. You didn't know if it's going to be a V-bit, a car bomb that's sagging down, parked on the side of the road. You never knew if it was going to be a bomb stuffed inside of a dead animal on the side of the road. I mean, it could be an ambush, machine gun fire, RPGs, snipers. We never knew, right? And like day in, day out, that takes a toll.
It's a unique toll, man, because like there's a lot of guys in the regular army who like maybe never fired their rifle and they feel bad. They don't feel like a badass. They feel like they didn't serve. They feel like this. They feel like that. But I gotta say, it is a relief when the rounds pop off and you see the enemy and you can go after them. It is way more stressful to sit in a vehicle to drive the same routes, hopefully not on the same timeline, but you're still on the same damn road, waiting to get hit, waiting to be attacked, and then not knowing where it's going to come from. And doing that over and over is a different psychological effect than actually engaging the enemy. And so there's a lot of guys, truck drivers, I think it's like 88 Mike in the Army. There's a lot of people that lived that, never fired their rifle, don't feel like their service was adequate, even though I think they were under more stress in a lot of different ways.
Yeah, that's fair. And just to put in there too, I mean, there's absolutely women downrange too in those roles as well that were dealing with the same shit every day.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. I was in the combat arms unit. I was in earlier, so it was like things were a little bit different. But in the combat engineers, we had a couple women on admin. They weren't in line units. And so, you know, no disrespect. It's not what I mean. It's just from a different time, different
I don't
era,
know.
different.
For sure. Just want to give them a shout out too, because I saw those convoys. We were a QRF, quick reaction force, and anytime those convoys got hit, we were getting called out. We are the ones
Yeah.
responding to it. And I think you have a very valid point, man. I did squeeze off rounds. I can't imagine if I was never able to.
Right.
That release, it's probably a really hard thing for most people to comprehend, but at least you're putting rounds back down range at the bad guys, and to not ever have that opportunity, I can see that really building up and being a difficult thing to deal with.
There's like this psychological study where they put a dog in a cage and they hit it with a stick, hit it with a stick, hit it with a stick. And at some point they open the gate to the door and the dog won't leave. Like the dog is just stuck inside that cage. You know what I mean? So yeah, it's a lot of intensity to be in that situation. It's like imagining somebody hitting you, slapping you, and you can't do anything about it. Like that's a whole different thing than you're actually getting in a fight. It's like a different pressure that's hard to explain.
Totally. So you came back, man. Came back from Ramadi. What was that like?
I thought I was good, dude. And then I got back to Germany. We had this like battalion formation. They're firing off, I don't know what you call it. It's like fake artillery. Everybody's doing this. I went to some club and the strobe lights were going, and I started kind of like hyperventilating. I went to a fireworks show in Germany, and I basically had like a mental breakdown for the evening.
Mm.
Like, I didn't know the amount of stress I was under until I was out of the stress. And then I didn't really know what I know now. And I thought I was just having a bad night or something was weird. And I didn't really put the pieces together for many years later. But anyway, something had changed, man. And I got down there and I was so bitter, so resentful, so frustrated that I wanted to go back. And if I'm going to go back, I wanted to go back as a Green Beret. I wanted to be with people that wanted to take the fight to the enemy. I wanted to be on the best organizations that I could be in, and I wanted to go back. We didn't go back to Iraq. I went to Afghanistan instead, but it was Ramadi that pushed me over the edge to sign up to become a Green Beret.
For some people to hear that, some people might not be able to comprehend wanting to put themselves in harm's way. And I think that is the story of courage that we need to honor our military forces that do. Those who do opt to run towards the enemy, those who do opt to take that risk, those who will put their lives in jeopardy for others, for the other guys in their units, right? Like that is there is no closer brotherhood than that in my experience.
Yeah, man, I want to be surrounded by people who run towards the problem, whether that's a spouse, an entrepreneurial friend, a combat buddy, whatever it is. Like, there's people who avoid problems and people who go towards problems. There's people who avoid risk, and there's people who mitigate and pursue and solve. And sometimes it's courage, and sometimes it's just the way people are wired. But in my life, you know, problems get bigger when you avoid them, when you resist them, when you try to get away from them. So that's just, I think it's the way I was wired. Um, I Ramadi kicked my ass, man. Like, it messed me up. It was devastating to our unit, and I wasn't going to allow it to stay like that.
When I came back, one, I felt like I betrayed my guys when I was in the hospital after getting blown up. I was in the hospital for many weeks, numerous surgeries, and I felt like I betrayed them because they were still downrange on patrol, and I was relatively safe in the hospital, right? Like that was the mental state of my mind of what was going on. You're so close to your unit, you're so close to your guys, to the left and your right. And for us, we had wingmen. I was in a light armored vehicle platoon, and that was a hard thing to deal with, dude. And I think the other thing too is like coming back to the time it was called PTSD, PTS. It's got different iterations of the name, but post traumatic stress, right? Let's call it what it is. What is post traumatic stress disorder? Post traumatic stress, to me, it is a normal reaction to abnormal circumstances. When you are day in, day out in that intensity of an environment, not knowing if you're going to live, die, where it's going to come from, uh, that takes a toll. So you came back from your tours, you got out of the army. What happened for you in your life? What were you witnessing? What were you seeing? What were you doing? Where was your mind?
So I couldn't wait to get out. I got out. I was done. I ended up in Indiana visiting some old army buddies. Instead of even going home, I stopped off in Indiana to spend time there to visit with my guys that I was in Ramadi with. You know, so that tells you something right there. I love my family, man, but I wanted to see them first. And so my period in Indiana, I started hearing about suicide. A friend of mine hung himself. This guy, he asked me every day, how are you? Not every day, but often. He'd be like, hey, man, how are you doing? Hey, are you good? Because towards the end of my career, I was having problems. I was, getting in trouble, having problems with this, having problems with that. And he was constantly taking the time to check in on me. And he was a good dude, man, and he meant it. And you know how you can tell. And not once did I ask him how he was doing.
Hmm.
Not one, because I was annoyed. I felt weak. I was ashamed. He's like, okay, stop asking me. Like, I'm fine. So I kind of like pushed it away. And then later I found out he hung himself. And then it dawned on me, man, that I never asked him how he was doing. And that ate me up because I felt selfish because I was. But I didn't know any better at the time. And he was a higher rank than me. So, he was a major and I was a staff sergeant. So we weren't like equals, but he was trying to check on his guys. And I didn't feel comfortable even like trying to approach him as an equal. But nevertheless, I never asked him how he was. And there started being kind of a string of suicides. People I knew, people friends of mine, their friends, and I started hearing about all this. And I did some research, and I discovered that the VA put out this report that there's 22 a day. And at first, I thought it was bullshit statistics. Then I got resentful with the government. Then I got resentful with the army. Then I just started getting resentful and mad. And then there's this moment when I was asking myself, like, well, what are you going to do about it? You're just going to be an angry guy, living on a hill, did 3 tours, and now you're disgruntled, Like I didn't like that. I didn't like how that felt. And so I decided I was going to do something about it. And that was the beginning, the creation of Mission 22. I can get into that later, but I decided I wasn't just going to be a stander by. I wasn't just going to be a witness. I wasn't just going to ignore something. But once I jumped into that world, I had no idea how deep and how much and how heavy it all was for many, many years.
Yeah, so it sounds like that was really the foundation, the why, the reason behind Mission 22 right there, right? Veteran suicides. Um, how do you even address dealing with the epidemic of veterans committing suicide?
So, there was then and then there's now. And this is really important. This is really important for us as a country, as for veterans, as for future veterans. In 2011, 12, nobody was talking about it. All right. There was a stigma attached. If you didn't want to talk about having problems, you could lose your security clearance. You'd
Hmm.
get ostracized. You could lose your career. So nobody talked about it. Then we started talking about it.
Right? Suck it up.
Suck it up, whatever, like don't be weak,
Hmm.
which to a degree that makes sense a little bit.
Yep.
It's not black and white. There's a lot of gray here. Then we started talking about it all the time, and now people hear about it, talk about it, hear about it. Now it's kind of gone the other way where now people are like, oh, veterans get PTSD, and that's not true either. And so now it's this like, hey, we want to acknowledge it, we want to understand it, but then we don't want to wallow in it. We don't want to only focus on it. We want to focus on the solution. We don't want to just stay stuck in the problem. And
Totally.
so there's got to be this kind of continuum of the way we think. Like we got to address the suicide, but then we can't just stay stuck on that and not talk about solutions, not talk about being prideful of being a veteran, being excited about being a veteran, because there's both.
Yeah,
And so it's really important, nuanced conversation that has to happen now.
for sure, man. You know, I'm sharing a little bit about my experiences in combat, your experiences in combat, you're sharing. This is not a woe is us, feel sorry for us type of conversation here, right? Like neither you or I about that at all. I've known you long enough, and we can jump into that now here. I mean, I've known you for over 10 years, man. I was looking at pictures earlier this morning, and I was down in Nashville, Indiana with you back in March of 2015, looking at these 10-foot tall artwork pieces, the silhouette, the cutout of actual service members who committed suicide in Iraq, that served in Iraq and Afghanistan, right? Like that was when we first started getting to know each other. And I was doing some other veteran work, and you're doing that. It's like, okay, like this is interesting, like, and we just really kind of connected, bonded, hit it off, real. We're both kind of intense, right? Like we both want to make an impact. We both give a damn, which is really important to us. And then I went and did some other stuff, some veteran stuff. I was a partner with a veteran organization, and partnerships are really difficult. And ultimately stepped away from that. I think you'd gone through a similar type of relationship that had kind of ceased to exist, and I think that's a challenging part for you too, with a relationship exiting your life. And so at that time, you and I we went hiking on the Cascade Mountains through Oregon and Washington, right? Two different times that we did that. I think total we did
Yep.
over 500 miles, close to 600 miles out in the Pacific Crest Trail (PCT), and it was awesome.
Right.
Even though you lied to me and didn't tell me how hard it's going to be the first time.
I didn't know, bro.
We're the only two idiots. We're like, where is everybody?
No,
We couldn't
you
even see
said
the
that. I
trail.
didn't say that. You said we got out there and this trail was covered in snow, and you said to me, "Where are all the other hikers?" And I looked at you and laughed because they ain't out here. And it was dumb, but it was awesome.
It was dumb, but it was awesome. Absolutely, man. We couldn't even see the trail. We were walking in snow.
For like 3 days, I think. I don't remember exactly, but it was like 3 days of no trail. We were just navigating with the app and the map. And yeah, you got a
It was,
gut check on the second day, and but you
oh yeah,
manned up, dude, and then you crushed.
yeah. it was awesome, man. I think that was exactly what I needed at the time. Something hard, a challenge. That
Yeah,
experience. When you go through those experiences, uh, embracing the suck. It's like category two fun, level two fun. It's fun after the
right,
fact, after you do
right.
it. And I don't know if I ever told my wife that I had a self arrest on the side of the mountain after I started sliding off. I don't know if I shared that with her. Probably better that I don't. Uh, but it was real, dude. Right? Like it wasn't just like a hike through the woods. It was like you might not make it out of here.
No, yeah, like there was some points where like, hey, you really need to like step carefully, pay attention, navigate properly. I mean, you combine Rainier, the PCT, because that was one of the biggest snowfalls of the year that we went on the PCT.
Yeah,
And like you got to be dialed. You got to be committed to the process because it was difficult to find water. You don't want to roll an ankle on in the middle of these sections of the hike, and
it
when
was
there's all that
remote.
snow, it was real.
Yep, it was real. So we did that first time. I don't know how long we were out there for, 2.5, 3 weeks, something like that, right? Just hiking, doing 20, 25 miles a day through like crazy terrain, siphoning water, like melting water from snowpack, trying to find little springs to get water from, filtering it. And it
Yeah,
was awesome. For two prior military dudes, it was an awesome experience. So after that, then on 9/11 of 2016, we climbed Mount Rainier, right?
I don't know the exact year, man. It was like 16,
16 or 17.
17.
It's right in
Yeah,
there.
we climbed it. You did okay.
Really,
Yeah,
really.
no, you were crushing. I struggled with a little bit of elevation towards the
It's
summit,
ripping.
and you were just jamming.
But again, man, just doing something super hard, right? Doing something physical. And I remember something you said, man, our time out in the mountains, just hiking. And at the time, we were reading this book called Transitions, right? We were both kind of going through a transition in our life. I had already built one business, really wanted to give back to the veteran scene, really, really wanted to get reconnected in a way that impacted, served, helped veterans. Um, whether I love it or not, or whatever the case is, how I feel about veterans, like I am one, and I do feel a sense of obligation and a duty to continue to serve. I don't think that ever stops, and I can't speak for you, but I believe that you still have that sense of needing to serve other people, and you do. Um, I think it's just ingrained in who we are. But during that time, reading that book, Transitions, is like, okay, before one new thing can happen, something has to end. And that was just an incredible book to read out there and then to talk with you while we're hiking on the trails and just surrounded by beauty, surrounded by nature, surrounded by mountains. Uh, awesome experience, man. Awesome experience. And then when we climbed Mount Rainier, summiting to the top, like that moment when we're at the top of the mountain, it was like we're on top of the world, right? Nothing else mattered in that moment. We were so dialed into that moment of actually summiting the mountain and getting up there. And I remember that feeling. It was amazing. I don't necessarily need to do it again. I want to live. I like my life. I don't love heights. I don't love walking across aluminum ladders that are roped together over crevasses. Gets a little hairy, right? Like, I think we had either an avalanche or a snowfall that took out some ladders before we got there one night. But
Yeah,
anyway,
yeah.
we did something really hard, right? And I remember on the trail when we were hiking, and you kind of shared a philosophy or just kind of a strategy of removing, or not maybe removing, but being bigger than our experiences. I think you said something like we're not limited by the past, and how do you minimize the impact that something has in your life that's very traumatic? And you said grow your experiences, grow who you are, become bigger than your
Right,
past. Can you
right.
hit on that for a
Yeah,
second?
yeah, man. Like the word trauma, I might mess this up, but originally I think it's like Greek, and it means puncture. So it means like wound, right? And so if you've seen like a trauma wound, it's like a scar. Like if you get a big trauma scar wound as a child, it's big, right? But as your body grows, the scar becomes smaller. The wound is the same size, but you grow. You grow in strength, you grow in size, you grow in capacity, you grow in scope, you grow in experiences. And so it's not that because those deep trauma puncture wounds don't necessarily, they heal, but they still that like indent. There's still the residue of the damage.
Hmm.
But as you grow, it becomes smaller, lighter, easier to carry, and a cool story that gives your life meaning, context. And on top of all of that, you're then qualified once you grow past it to help others. So traumatic experiences, if we do it in community, if we work through it, if we deal with the problem, it becomes a point of strength.
Mm.
You know, this is what I believe. This is what I've had to do, and now I do it willingly. But in the beginning, I had to, because it's either going to destroy me or I'm going to reinvent myself. And you know, that's where I found myself, was kind of, well, I'm either going down or I accept where I am and reinvent and force myself to grow and look for growth opportunities. And so then it doesn't take up your whole identity. It's just a part the more you grow. And so you can grow in family, relationships, spirituality, business, entrepreneurship. There's so many ways to.
100%, man. I think it's one of the things that we both really resonated with. And I remember we were driving out to the mountains on our second hike in the PCT up in Oregon. I'm sorry, up in Washington, state of Washington. Beautiful area. I think the first morning, second morning, we woke up, there's a bear walking around our tents. Like, okay, this is sketch. Eh, it definitely was a little sketch there. Maybe not where we should have been. We saw a bear scat on the ground, but again, it's those memories of doing that kind of stuff. And
Did you remember the elk stampede?
yeah, we had to jump off the trail because they were coming down the
Yeah,
mountain real fast.
yeah.
Oh man, those that was awesome stuff. But I guess where I want to go with this is like those were pretty extreme events that we did, right? I'm not talking about war. I'm talking about the mountaineering that we did. It was extreme. It was extreme. There's a reason why we chose Mission 22 this month to partner with in a way to make an impact. And dude, it's because I know who you are, man. I literally trust you with my life. I knew out in those mountains, if something happened, you're coming for me, even at the peril of your own life. I knew that. And it was vice versa, right? And that bond is it's a strong bond, no doubt about it. And that's not given, that is formed. And so when we think about who can we get behind? Who can we support in the veteran community? And I've done a lot of work. After I got out of the Marine Corps in 2005, I traveled the country speaking, sharing my story. I've seen a lot of nonprofit organizations. Uh, I think the number is close to 50,000. I might have misspoke earlier. I said a different number, but it's like 50,000 veteran organizations in America. And by the way, they're not all great, right? That's just the reality of it. I know you, man. I know your organization. You've brought me into it to help in ways that I could, and I appreciate that. But I've seen the insides of it, and I can't think of a better organization to get behind. I trust you. I trust your mission. I know your heart. I know your why, and we are super proud, dude, to support Mission 22 this month in a small way. I mean, this is such a small way that we're helping you, but if we can share the message, spread the word, and any for us this month we're donating 5% of all of our sales to Mission 22, and that's just a drop in the bucket for what the work you're doing, for what veterans deserve, for us caring about them, giving a damn about them. So first off, I want to say thank you for doing something. The nonprofit world can be a challenging world. You're out there raising funds to make an impact, and sometimes economically certain things happen where it might be harder to raise funds, right? Downturns in the economy or people aren't feeling certain with their jobs and whatnot. But you stuck through it, man. You stuck through the hard times and you're still impacting veterans' lives today.
I remember in the beginning you were drilling me about profit and losses and these documents, this documents, where's this, where's that, and I had to produce them and show you it, because you were an experienced entrepreneur and I was just getting started, and so you had me on the ropes with all this administrative stuff. And I don't think I've ever taken the time to tell you how valuable that was, because I got baked into the DNA of Mission 22, right? Like, be as transparent as possible, do as much as possible to like understand that piece of it. And, you know, mistakes happen, but you stand by it because you own it. And so from the beginning, that's, you know, I've taken that on. I've realized the importance of that. But then the other thing you talked about is like, hey, a small thing. And I don't think it is, bro, because, and the reason is like people who are interested and care about regenerative farming, that care about clean protein, that care about where their food is coming from, you know, I bet you they care about their family. I bet you they care about their community. I know they care about the land, and I know they care about the animals, and they care about their bodies, right? So
Totally.
if I've got a community of people like that who care about veterans in Mission 22, I'm all about it. And then it ties exactly into the programs we run, because the recovery and resiliency program, they get supplementation, They get a gym membership to jujitsu and CrossFit. They get a certified health and wellness coach, national board certified health and wellness coach, which is the highest standard of coaching you can get. They get 12 books. Anyway, the whole process is about reducing inflammation, achieving hormonal balance, getting back into the fight, finding purpose and identity, and doing the process rather than just being worried about the. And so, one of the biggest reasons I believe that veterans are struggling so much is because if you look around at America, people are under a tremendous amount of physiological stress. Maybe they got a corporate job, maybe they're driving, they're not in gunfights, but they're worried about their job every day. They get home late, they have very little time to eat. They got demands from their kids, demands from their spouse. And then
Life.
if they're like, dude, especially because now you got to have two people earning an income
Mhm.
with the inflation. With inflation goes mental health problems, goes regular health problems, and you got less money to deal with it. And so to me, the diet, how you get your food, the relationship to food, your relationship to farmers and ranchers is directly connected to the solution for mental and physical health that our country is devastated by, with the obesity, the depression, the anxiety, and the inflammation. Regenerative farming is part of that solution, man. So
Totally.
I'm so pleased about the energy, the nature, the origin of where the support is coming from, and I want to be a part of that. I want to be associated with that, and I want to introduce veterans that don't know about it to think this way and eat this way, because this is one of the best things you can do to transition, to overcome trauma, to grow, is to eat healthy, clean food, especially healthy, clean protein.
I know you've done a lot of research on cortisol levels and stress and just what that does to our body chemically, right? Just being in those environments. And the same thing with food, inflammation, and
Yes,
the food we're eating
dude.
today, especially the ultra processed foods and even food that's being imported to our country, not knowing how it's raised. And so I am a rancher. I'm a farmer. I have cattle, I have sheep, I have hogs, chickens, you name it.
Yeah.
We've used animals, and I've learned there's multiple ways that you can raise animals. And a lot of people are using a lot of the inputs, a lot of the synthetics, a lot of the drugs, a lot of the antibiotics just to keep those animals alive to be processed for eating. I don't want to eat an animal that's just barely kept alive to its processing date, till its butcher date, right? Like I don't believe in that. And these animals living in these confined barns, talk about stress in humans. What about stress in animals? Same thing. Same thing. So I think there is a different way to eat clean food that is nourishing our bodies, healing our bodies. And honestly, man, I've shared this with you, but finding a way to feed veterans, man, that's really important to me. Like I really want to feed veterans really clean food. I remember my last tour in Iraq before I got blown up. We had a meal with a local sheik and the men in that little community, in that little town village. And the point I have here is that food brought us together. Yes, it's probably the same guys that are trying to kill us at night, but that meal brought us together. And I think that is a really significant, important point to hammer home in a country that's divided on multiple different things, right? Like if we just tune off the noise for a second, what can we all get behind? Food. We all need to eat food. It can bring people together. I think it has magical healing powers, physically, emotionally, spiritually. I think there's a lot of value there. So I'm super pumped to be a part of what you're doing, man.
Like, I see it all the time. I see parents feed kids a bunch of sugar and then wonder why they're not calmed down. I see veterans eating like gas station burritos and a big gulp and then talking about PTSD. Like, you can address so many hormonal inflammation, like 90% of Americans are dealing with a metabolic health issue right now. The obesity's through the roof, the mental health diagnosis is through the roof. Like, you talk about inflammation. How are you going to process, doing therapy, coaching, all these things when your brainstem's literally inflamed, when your testosterone is zero, when you're eating more sugar by breakfast than you're supposed to eat for like a week? I mean, that's a little bit of an exaggeration, but not by much. So I'm not going to get more on the soapbox, man, but like, I love what you're doing. I want to be around what you're doing, and I want veterans to understand regenerative farming, clean, healthy food, eating right is the foundation of building a life that you love, that you enjoy, and that you want to share with others, man. It's where we got to start.
Totally. I just want to put one thing out there about you personally is not only have you lived through this yourself personally, you have a background in psychology, right? I mean, you're not just spitting stuff off. Like you're actually formally educated in that world.
Yeah, I have a master's degree in human services counseling with a focus on life coaching. I got a bachelor's degree in behavioral science. Yeah, and then I've got I'm in the process of finishing all my coaches are national board certified health and wellness coaches, but I'm finishing my own certification. Uh, what else? I've gotten taken several courses in all different types of coaching, mental health, trauma. I've been studying it for 15 years. I'm a former Green Beret. I'm the founder of Mission 22. I see the data, man. We Garmin watches. This is part of something that we issue with veterans that go through our program. It's not 100% accurate, but it gives you an idea. So veterans that come through our program, we see their deep sleep, their REM, their physiological stress level at baseline, and then we see it at the end. And we recommend a paleo primal diet. We recommend exercise. We recommend getting the right supplementation that they need, and I see the stress come down. I see the sleep improve. I see the REM and the deep sleep. I see their capacity to be able to handle stress. So I'm I've experienced it as a veteran. I've experienced it through Mission 22. I've studied it academically, and then I also engage with it in my own life. Like for example, man, I got a TB. I got PTSD. They didn't say I had TBI, but I did get blown up. I had massive inflammation, migraine headaches. I was overweight, chronic cortisol, probably low testosterone. And I've transformed my life with good relationships, a spiritual process, the right food, learning psychological things that I can apply to my life, fitness, so many different ingredients and elements to rebuild my own life. So it's like, I'm not only recommending people do it, I do it. I live that way because it's better.
That's awesome, man. I think it's the reason we love you, what you're doing, who you are. I can't say enough good things about you, man. I really don't. So just putting a bow tie on this thing, wrapping this thing up here. I mean, how can people get engaged? How can they learn more? What can they do to help make an impact, both for Mission 22, for what we're doing with Rebel. Again, we're giving 5% of our sales this month to Mission 22 and your mission. Um, what can they do? Can they go on to Mission 22? Can they donate? Can they share this story? Can they share your story? What are ways that people can get engaged, involved?
So many ways. Yes, charities need money to run. We need money to run these programs. If you want to donate and support these programs, please do. If cash is tight and you can't do that, you could be an ambassador. You can help raise awareness. Right now, we're doing a mission coalition where you can go to different businesses and ask those businesses to support Mission 22. If be an advocate, like us, follow us, share it. And even at the bare minimum, start. Hey, if things are affecting veterans, it's going to affect you next if it isn't already. And what I'm saying by that is, like, we're all living in a food system that's not great. We're all living in a medical system that's not great. And I see health problems big time with civilians. Now you add combat stress on top of that, it's even more. But the point is that we're all in this together. And so take these health ideas, think about your own family, think about veterans start learning, start eating, start thinking this way. So not only can you take care of yourself, but you can take care of those who are taking care of you.
So this is really important to me for multiple reasons. My oldest daughter is a junior in high school, and she is seriously considering the Naval Academy. And like part of me is like super proud, part of me, reserved on the other side of it, knowing what I went through. But the point being is like this isn't just about you and I, man. This is about the future of our country, the future of the wars that are going to protect our way of life, the future of what America really is. So this isn't just a hey, this is for the 9/11 veterans. No, 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 no. When I came back from Iraq, the Vietnam veterans stood up big time, and they showed up big time because they weren't taken care of when they came home, and they made damn sure it didn't happen to our generation, you and I, coming back from Iraq and Afghanistan. I think we have an obligation to pass it forward, to pay it forward, to set them up for future success, whatever may happen. And not to be political about war, right, wrong, whatever, indifferent. But the reality is we need a strong military of war fighters.
Well, to do that, you got to have a strong civilian population. And like I've been saying, if we can't get our food right, if we can't get our medical systems right, if we can't get our attitudes right, if we can't be more supportive of each other, if we can't live right, eat right, socialize right, we're not going to have a strong warfighter demographic. And so, not only is the future of warfighters and their health and well-being important, like what we're talking about, but it's important for the families that produce them. And so, people are going to have massive stress in their lives. And then if they serve in the military, they're going to have even more stress. And one
Yep.
of the best ways that you can prepare that child or that young person going into that is to build them up as a young person by feeding them properly, loving them properly, helping them be more resilient. Because I'm telling you, if your hormone level is right, if your body weight is right, if you're eating high quality proteins, you're going to have less anxiety, less depression, less inflammation, and you're going to be able to handle stress better. And so, food is a very important piece for the health and well being of our nation. And I think it's directly tied to national security. And I'm not
100%.
even exaggerating.
100%. I
And,
mean,
and
I don't have the exact statistics right now, but I know that the combat readiness, effectiveness of our military is not what it was 20 years ago. The amount of people that actually are able to join the military, that's decreasing because of the amount of
yes,
medications, the amount of
yes,
obesity, the amount of physical
yes,
limitations. For me and Jenny, when we started Rebel in 2020, that was during the middle of COVID, right when COVID was coming down. And I'm not one to sit back and feel like a victim. And I wanted to take a bad situation and make good for it. So we started farming. We started raising a couple hundred chickens in our backyard. And it obviously grew from there. Now we've raised a lot of animals, but it started us on this journey of really looking at our food system and health. And at the time during COVID, all that was talked about, no, let me rephrase this. Nobody was talking about being outside, being active, being out in the sunshine, getting exercise, eating healthy, clean food, you know, spiritually, socially, emotionally, and mentally. Like none of that was talked about.
right.
No, there's face mask and that.
Yep,
And I'm
yep.
not being
This is exactly
controversial.
what I'm saying.
Why are we not talking about the whole picture, right? And that was crazy to me when that happened.
Well, this is what I'm talking about, man. And I see it everywhere. I see it in veterans because of the combat stress. It highlights, but people automatically assume like, oh, combat stress, PTSD. Where does it start? It starts with bowls of cereal in the morning. It starts with not having all access to clean, healthy protein, clean, healthy living, clean water. So many things. We could talk forever about it. So I love what you're doing. Mission 22 loves what you're doing. This is a big part of our programs. And this is why our programs get so much traction because it's in the veterans' control. They're not, we don't view them as broken. We view them as whole. We view them as people that are able to change their lives, that go the way they want to go, and we want to support them, right? And we start with the basics and the fundamentals: arm, equip, support, and they go and do amazing things, man. And just that mental shift, it's the game changer of why Mission 22's Recovery and Resiliency program gets so much traction.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. I'm just thinking, like, what is the net effect, the net gain of transforming one person's life going through that program?
Unknown. I
I
don't,
mean,
dude, if
the
you,
ripple effect, right? Throwing that
you're an
stone out.
entrepreneur, you're an entrepreneur, dude. If I can turn a zero into one, what's the return on investment?
Yeah, I mean, it's
Right?
infinite.
It's infinite. This is like, so this is what we're about, man. Like, because if we get the veteran dialed, if the veteran comes through and does this and their life changes, guess what happens? If a spouse, I forget the numbers, but basically, like if one spouse makes a bunch of healthy changes, even if the other spouse is kind of reluctant or not happy about it, eventually they will too. And then that becomes their habit, that becomes their lifestyle, that affects their children. Those children have friends, those friends start seeing that, and so then it ripples out in the community. So my goal is to get as many veterans through R&R as possible so we can put our warriors, our servant leaders in a position of health, radiant health, abundance, and they could be guides, mentors, and set an example for their neighbors. Because not only do I want to help veterans, but I want them to be an example to our country of what it looks like to take it head on, to change your life, to build a life that you want to live, and then help others do it too. And that's like the deep one of the deeper goals that I have and what I'm doing.
That's awesome, man. And that encompasses what you and I both believe, and that is post-traumatic growth, right? We are not,
100%.
we're going to take something that happened and we're going to grow from it. We're going to have positive outcome, positive impact.
I always tell people, and that, there's varying degrees of trauma and brain injury and all kinds of stuff, right? So there's like one extreme and then the other. But significant trauma in your life, when you've gone through the beginnings of the healing stages, at some point, it's an opportunity to completely reinvent yourself.
Hmm.
That it sounds cheeky in the beginning, but as you go through things and start to change and grow, you can become somebody else. You can learn new habits. You can get rid of old ideas and incorporate new ideas because the old way doesn't work anymore. So you got to grow. And when you're growing, man, like I like who I am better now than I did before. And because I've been through it, it's easy to say, but there is hope through it. You can reinvent yourself. The second version of the individual can be better than the first. And I think that's exciting. I think it's exciting to want to push into it and become a new person after all these experiences. I think that that's a wonderful way to look at it.
I think it's awesome, man. Magnus, I can't say enough good about what you guys are doing, dude. I love you like a brother, man. Thank you for your time. Thank you for what you're doing. Thank you for getting the word out. Thank you for making a positive impact in the veteran community, positive impact in our American society, and a positive impact in the future for our kids. Thank you.
Thank you, man. Looking forward to more conversations.